Hi, welcome back to Wallace Woods, or the kitchen at Wallace Woods anyways. So, I don't know if you can tell, but it is a cold, dreary, miserable day here in Powhatan, Virginia. So I thought, what better way to beat the winter doldrums than to start looking forward to spring and planting some seeds. This is an important part of having a good garden, as I've found out, because by planting seeds, you can ensure that you get the kind of vegetables you really want to grow instead of just whatever the local hardware store may have in plants at whatever time that you go up there. So I started doing this a couple of years back. The first year, we have a sunroom on the back of our house, and so I set up all of these trays of seeds in the sunroom. And what I found was everything germinated and started to grow, but nothing ever got very big. After I did a little bit of research, I kind of found out that they weren't getting enough sunlight. Seeds need about 16 hours of direct sunlight to grow big and strong. So last year, I bought some grow lights, which you'll see in a minute. And I've learned some things along the way that I want to kind of pass along to you guys. About a week ago, I started our first seeds of the season, which was about 5 different varieties of peppers. And in the middle of doing that, I thought to myself, this would make a pretty interesting video for some people. But my hands were already dirty, so I figured I'll come back to it later. So here we are. All right, so you can see in front of me, I've got a couple of different setups here. These are your traditional peat pots that you can buy at just about any store. These are the Jiffy pots. They seem to be the biggest brand in the game. We also need our starter soil, which I've got here. Again, Jiffy organic seed starting mix. I really like this. I tried a bunch of different varieties last year because home gardening got to be huge in 2020 during the quarantine, and next thing you know, because of its popularity exploding, nobody had any dirt. So I had to try and use a lot of different substrates last year, and nothing was as good, in my opinion, as the Jiffy mix for seed starting. I've got my trays here, and then these guys. And these are plastic. I don't usually recommend plastic, but these were left over from plants that we had bought. And instead of pitching them, I save them because they make really good little seed starting containers. And then you can just take the whole piece, the whole plant, root ball and all, and the dirt out of them, and save them and recycle and use them again next year, which is what I'm gonna do. So last but not least, I've got my seeds. I've got a couple of different varieties here. Usually, so like last year, I bought everything, all my seeds online from Johnny's Seeds, and I was really happy with the way that those turned out, especially the cucumbers. The cucumbers were amazing. But this year, again, I think because of the pandemic, Johnny's was not selling to the home gardener at the time. They may be again now, but so I went ahead this year and bought seeds from Burpee online, which nothing wrong with them. It's just a little bit different variety. And you can certainly do your homework and find different seeds and seed suppliers that will give you the plants that you're looking for and the varieties that you want. Some people are really into doing all organic seeds. Some people don't really care. I'm one of them. I'm really just looking for what's going to give me the most bang for my buck, which brings me to my final point before we get started. I like to document. I know it's kind of a nerdy thing to do, but I take notes, and I will mark all of these individual trays with what seeds are going in them, who made the seeds, where the seeds came from, and the date that I planted them on. And that way I can keep track to see, this year I'm using the Burpee seeds for the first time. If they do great, I'll make a note of that. If they don't do well, maybe I don't use them again. So it's just kind of one of those things where you try to find what works best. All right, let's get started. So I have here just an old bucket and the dirt. And it's time to fill these pots. But what I like to do is to take said bucket and get the dirt nice and wet. And the only way to really do this is to get your hands dirty. But trust me, this makes filling those pots a lot easier because the dirt is going to pack in to those pots really nicely. And this helps kind of jumpstart the seed germination because it'll already have all of the moisture it needs in the soil so it can get started. All right, so the soil is nice and damp. You don't want it too watery and muddy. You don't want it to drain water out the bottom of the pot when you're putting this dirt in. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fill these, but I'm only gonna fill them about a third of the way at the bottom. And I'll tell you why here in just a minute. So just drop some dirt in there and move on. You don't want to pack this stuff in here real tight because the roots need to be able to spread out once the seed starts to germinate. You also don't want it too loose because as this dirt settles, you don't want there to be too much air down there in between in the soil. So I'm just going to fill all these up about a third of the way, and then we'll come back and look at it in a minute. So I've got them all filled about a third of the way. Now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to drop a little bit of fertilizer, which is just a little bit of 10-10-10 in every one of these cups. Now I do this like this, and again, I guess I should probably let you know that I'm not a professional gardener. This is all just trial and error kind of stuff, but it seems to work pretty well. So why I do it this way is the fertilizer can be too hot for young roots. So you don't want to put the fertilizer right on the seeds or have the contact with it right on the seeds. So I fill the cups with about a third of the dirt, the fertilizer in, then I'll come back and put more dirt on top. So that way, as the seed germinates, the roots will go down through the dirt and they'll start to mature, and then they'll hit that fertilizer, and then they'll just get a kickstart and really take off from there. Because you don't want, like I said, you don't want to have those seeds germinating on top of that fertilizer. You want to have a little bit of a barrier in there. So let's fill the rest of the pots up. So I've got all the pots filled up, ready to go. I'm gonna do this batch in radishes. So I think it's time I introduce you to one of the most important tools that you can invest in for when you're doing seeds at home, seed starting kits, and that is the number 2 pencil. This one happens to be chewed on by teenagers, but I don't think that's gonna make too much of a difference. So the reason that this is important is because this is what I'm going to use to plant all my seeds. I do that because you can get a pretty good gauge and it makes a great little hole. So you just go in just past, I like to go in about to there. And I make in these little pots 3 holes. And I will tell you why. It's because not all of these seeds will germinate. Some of them will just be sterile. Some of them just may not be, good. Or the conditions may not be right in every one. So what I like to do is to plant, especially on these little small seeds like radishes, lettuce, spinach, kale, that kind of stuff, is I like to make multiple holes and then I'll drop some seeds in. And then after they germinate here in a couple of weeks, we'll come back through and thin them out so we give the opportunity for the strongest plants to survive. Kind of like a little greenhouse Thunderdome kind of a situation. Only the strong will survive. So I make my holes, almost done here. And then on these radishes, and a lot of the greens are early planting. And the reason I'm starting them now is because I looked at my Farmer's Almanac and it said now is the time to start planting certain seeds inside. So always refer to your Farmer's Almanac. They've been doing it for a very long time. They're very smart. So these radish seeds, and I'll have the camera zoom in here in just a minute, as you can see, are very small. All right, not as small as the lettuce seeds that you'll see in a minute, but they're pretty tiny. So I'll just drop one in each hole. And if you drop more than one in the hole, it's not a big problem. And I'll come back through here in just a minute and I will cover them up using that same handy dandy number 2 pencil. So I've dropped seeds in all the holes, and then I use my same handy dandy little number 2 gardening utensil here. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but I missed the hole here, so you can just use that to flip that little guy back in. You don't want to pack them in too tight or anything like that. Just that one, I needed to mesh it down in there a little bit. Ooh, this guy was out too. Huh, I missed several on this one. Anyway, so you want to just kind of loosely close the holes up. And then these guys are all done and ready to go underneath the light. Now, as I alluded to earlier, I think it is important, and of course it's your garden, you can do whatever you want, to label everything, because all these seeds and all these pots look alike. And if you take them out to water them or something else like that, you may think that you've gotten them all back in order, and you don't. So my best advice to you is to use some masking tape and a Sharpie, which I will do here momentarily, and label your trays. Now, another important thing that I want to talk about is that they sell a lot of these seed starting kits in the stores, and they come with little trays like this and a plastic dome and little pots and little dehydrated chunks of dirt that you put a little water in and it expands. And it seems like a great idea, and they sell a boatload of them. But people get really frustrated because the seeds will germinate and then they kind of fizzle out. It's important to know that anybody can do this. You just have to have the right conditions. They have to get a lot of sunlight and they have to stay warm. You're not going to get enough light, for the most part, in your kitchen window. You're not going to get enough light, for the most part, putting them in a sunroom. They've got to have more light than what you expect. Again, about 16 hours a day. So if you've tried this in the past, the reason I'm doing this is so that you don't get frustrated and don't get burn out on it, because you can do it. I was ready to give up on it myself a few years ago. But I tell you, when you harvest food that not only you grew in your garden, but you started from scratch in seed, it is extraordinarily rewarding. So I'm gonna go put these underneath the light and get the rest of my seeds and stuff started, and we'll show you the finished product here in just a minute. All right, so I'm on my last tray, and I just wanted to show you how small these lettuce seeds are. And also take this opportunity to tell you that depending on what you're planting, you're either gonna get a lot of seeds or maybe just 5 or 6 seeds in a package. Pumpkins, for example, will usually come with not a whole lot of seeds. The bigger the pumpkins are, the less seeds that you'll get in a pack. But this lettuce comes with 1,500 seeds. That's a lot. It's a lot. So don't feel like you have to plant everything in the packet all at once. Some of the stuff that I have planted today, the Johnny stuff and the spinach from Southern States, is seeds that I have left over from last year. Now, if you keep them in a dry place, out of the sunlight, and I usually just box them up and throw them in a closet, then there's no reason that they shouldn't be fine to use for a couple of different seasons. I'm sure at some point they lose their effectiveness, but I haven't noticed that yet. I've only been doing this will be my 3rd year. So again, don't feel like you have to use all these seeds, because otherwise you're gonna be swimming in lettuce. All right, so as you can see, we're all done now. We've got the pots all filled, seeds ready in and underneath the grow lights. Now I've got 2 different kinds of grow lights here. I've got these, 2 of these guys that go up and down here. As you can see, got a little string pulley system. So as the plants get taller, we can raise that up. But as for right now, they need to be down lower. And then I have this system here, which is kind of a double-decker system. And this one, these lights ride up and down on these rails, again, for adjustment, so you can get the light up as the seeds germinate and plants grow. You can raise the lights up, but right now you want them about 3 inches above the surface of the pots. So you can see up here I've got some bell peppers, some lunchbox peppers, and then down here I've got all my different hot peppers. And then I've got these plugged in to this handy dandy little timer. This is programmed. It's super easy to give these guys 16 hours of light a day. The light comes on at 6 o'clock in the morning and stays on until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And that's all she wrote. Now, the only thing left to do is to continue to water them. You want to keep your seeds moist. Don't overwater. You don't want standing water in these trays. The thing about these peat pots is they'll absorb a lot of that moisture. So you don't want to direct water the seeds either. You want to put your water down here and see the water flows through those little channels in these trays, and then the bottom of these peat pots will suck up that moisture and keep the dirt moist. You want to avoid watering directly on top of the seeds as much as possible. All right, that's gonna do it. We'll come back in a couple of weeks when these guys start to germinate and see what we got. Thanks for stopping in. Make sure you give us a like and follow us.